Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome to our live today, our very first series, or very first live in our bookkeeping series. So this month we are talking all about bookkeeping. And the reason I wanted to focus on this is because this is probably the number one question I get from folks in our community, which is like, how do I do my bookkeeping in a way that doesn't make me want to scream? Now, for those of you who are new here who don't know me, my name is Meg K. Wheeler. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the founder of the Equitable Money Project. I'm a CPA, and bookkeeping is one of the things that we talk a lot about inside of our Equitable Money Project community. So today I'm really excited about what we're going to do here because I am going to actually walk you through my exact bookkeeping routine. I'm going to show you exactly what I do, and I'm going to show you that I can do it all in less than 30 minutes. I do this every single week. It honestly usually doesn't even take me 30 minutes, but I'm going to be explaining some things. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway there on the time. I've got my stopwatch ready. I don't have a fancy timer on the screen. I wish I was tech savvy enough to do that, but I've got my timer here. I'm going to start it as soon as we dive in, so you can see that this will not take you that much time every single week. Now, I do want to mention a couple of things before we get started. The platform that we absolutely love to use is called Wave Apps. I'm going to drop an affiliate link down here on the screen in just a moment. But this is our favorite platform for a few reasons for online and service-based business owners. Number one, because it's super easy to set up. It's super easy to use. And it's actually pretty affordable. It's a lot cheaper than QuickBooks or Xero. And it's got a lot of the features that those bigger ones have. Plus, it doesn't have the features that they have that you don't need. So you're not paying for stuff that you don't actually need, okay? As we're going through, if folks have comments, please let me know. I see we've got a bunch of folks here live. I'd love to know who's here with us. Let me know if you have any questions. And I am going to be doing something fun at the end where if you drop your information, you have to drop it into the chat. If you drop your information into the chat, just give me your email or just your name, or just say like, hey, I'm here. You need to acknowledge that you're here. Then at the end, I'm going to give away one prize, and I will tell you up front, it's going to be one of two things. So it's either going to be our very brand new DIY bookkeeping kit, which is actually launching in a couple of weeks. It's going to be for sale, but today I'm going to give one of those away for free, or I'm going to give away one of our Wave Apps setup packages. This is where we actually go ahead and set up your Wave Apps account for you so that you don't have to do all the work. So you're either going to get the DIY bookkeeping kit, which will help you get everything set up on Wave Apps, or we're just going to do the work for you. If you have a preference of which one you'd like for me to give away, go ahead and mention that in the comments as well. And then I'll decide at the end, after we're done with our walkthrough, which one I'm going to give away. And I'm going to choose somebody who has commented on the video to do that. All right, so I want to go ahead and dive in. Bear with me 1 second. I did mention that I would go ahead and put up our affiliate link here for Wave Apps. So you can, it'd be good if I had that already written out. I don't, so I'm going to put it right now. But you can go ahead and grab your Wave Apps account by going to equitablemoneyproject.com/Wave Apps, and that's where you can get that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Wave Apps account here. This is actually our test account. So I'm going to show you our test account just so I had a better range of things that I can show you. But this is very similar to what my actual Wave Apps accounts looks like. Only difference is that this is just our test account, so it's fake numbers, not real numbers. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press start on my timer here. So we've started our timer. Again, we're going to do this whole walkthrough in under 30 minutes of what I do every single week in the bookkeeping in my business. This is Wave Apps. If you're brand new to the platform, the first thing you see when you log into your account is this dashboard. Shows you a lot of really helpful information. When I log into my Wave Apps account every week, I do usually spend about a minute looking at this dashboard. So I take a quick look at my connected accounts. These are my bank accounts, my credit cards, just to make sure the balances are what I think they are. I've got a generally good idea of what's in those accounts, but I just want to make sure that nothing seems glaringly off right away. I also just take a peek at my cash flow. Are there any concerning areas? For example, do I have any months where I've got like a ton of cash going out? Cash going out would be that gray, that outflow, and not a lot coming in. Maybe I'm going to pay closer attention to that. I like to scroll down to my profit and loss, just again, kind of get a ballpark of where I'm at. I'm going to dig into the numbers in a second, but this just gives me an overview. And then down here, I like to just come in and kind of check out my net income and check out my expense breakdown. So that's the first thing. It's usually about 30 seconds. the next thing I do is come over here to accounting and I go to my transactions. This is where I see everything that's come in or out of the bank account or has been put onto the credit card. And so the very first thing I do, you'll notice a lot of these say uncategorized. That's the thing I need to fix. I need to categorize all these transactions. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to filter. I'm going to choose category, choose uncategorized, and I'm going to click apply. And that's going to show me all the transactions I have to categorize. Now, the next thing I like to do, if I know that I haven't done this in a few months, so I'm going to have a lot of transactions from the same place, then I might go ahead and search. For example, like I might search for G Suite, and if I've got, which is Google Suite, and if I've got several of those, I'll select them all. I'll come up here to this pencil, bulk edit transactions, and I'll change the category to, let's say computer software. And then I'll go ahead and mark the selected transactions as reviewed so that I know that they're good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and apply. But sometimes I don't have a bunch of the same types of transactions. And so I do just literally need to go transaction by transaction. Another one that I often will do in bulk are my Stripe, all my money coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and select those, category. Let's change that. We'll call that course sales. And then we'll mark those as reviewed. And I'm just going to keep working my way through these uncategorized. I'm also going to choose anything with an invoice is probably a sale. So I'm going to choose that. I'm going to categorize those. We'll call that consulting income. And I'm going to go ahead and mark those as reviewed. And so I'm just going to work my way through. Now I want to show you a couple of things when I have a credit card payment. So notice how this is a credit card payment coming in and going out, I think. I want to connect those to each other. So I'm going to go ahead and click the transfer from bank, credit card, or loan. It actually didn't find itself in here, mostly because, again, these are fake transactions. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that right there and see if I can get them to find each other. There we go. So it found the opposite side of the transaction. It found the money coming. Actually, it switched these. This was set up wrong. Let's change them this way. Let's do it this way. It found the money coming out of my operating expense bank account going onto my credit card. And so I'm going to link those. And I'm going to mark those as reviewed. Now, I'm going pretty fast through this because I'm trying to show you what it actually is like when I do my stuff inside of our DIY bookkeeping kit, which, like I said, we're launching in a couple of weeks. We have walkthrough videos on how to do all of this stuff. I go much slower. I explain all of it. Right now, today, I'm really just trying to show you how quick and easy this is, that it doesn't really take me that long every week. So for anyone who feels super overwhelmed by bookkeeping, this video, the goal of this video is really to show you that it doesn't need to be that overwhelming, okay? So I'm gonna keep going because I'm at a little over 4 minutes, and I wanna make sure I stay under my 30 minutes like I promised. I've got, looks like I've got interest expense here. I've got another situation here where I've got a credit card payment. So I'm gonna just go ahead and change those, or link those, I should say. And I'm going to mark those as reviewed. Now, oftentimes when I've done, you'll see I've done categorized a lot of these and I've marked them as reviewed, but they don't go away from my screen. I'll come up here to uncategorized and I'll just hit apply so that it refreshes that filter just so I can see how many more I have left to go. I know I've got a bunch of fees here, so I'm going to search for those and bulk change those to bank service charges. I'm going to go ahead and press OK and mark those as reviewed. And I'm just going to keep working my way through. I've got a few other things that are sales. So I'm going to go ahead and bulk change those. Whoops. Call those sales. And I'm just working my way through, Oh, I took my filter off. That was my bad. I'm losing time. All right, hold on. Okay, so now I've got just a few more transactions. I've got some more interest charges. I'm going to go ahead and just bulk select those. And I'm actually, in this account, I'm actually doing several months of transactions because, again, this is our test account. We don't always keep it super clean. But for you, if you're going in and doing this every week, you're not going to actually have that many transactions to do for most of you because you probably don't have that many transactions every week that happen, right? Anything that is got my name in it, I'm going to call that owner's pay. So I'm going to go ahead and recategorize that, or owner distributions, I guess. There we go. So I've got a bunch of those. That'll get rid of a bunch of mine. And then let's see, I've got some Show It, which is our website. Oh, just one of those, but that's okay. And if you're wondering how these categories are set up or how I choose what categories, we go over this in our DIY bookkeeping kit that's coming out in a couple of weeks. But basically, you've got a lot of latitude on how you set up these categories, and you can actually set them up within what's called your chart of accounts. So that's something that you can customize here. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I've got pirate ship. So I've got a bunch of these, and I'm at just about 6 minutes and 37 seconds. So not too bad. This is the longest part of this whole process. So it doesn't surprise me that this is the one that's taking me the longest. And like I mentioned, I'm actually doing a couple of months here. If you're doing this every week, as I recommend, it probably will only take you a few minutes because you won't have that many transactions. So my list is getting pretty small now. So now I'm kind of just going to go one by one and just see what I can, how I can categorize each one of these. And again, I'm making sure to check them as reviewed. And you'll see why in 1 second, because the next step is actually a really cool feature of Wave that I love. And let's see. So I've got some more credit card payments here that I'm going to just go ahead and categorize. And getting pretty close, which is good. And again, I'm going to come back up and I'm going to refresh that filter because I want to see where I'm getting to in terms of how many I have left. And I mentioned earlier, we love Wave apps because it's easy to set up, it's easy to use. I find Wave apps to be so user-friendly that I think it's by far the best accounting or bookkeeping platform out there. And so it's why we recommend it to pretty much everybody in our community. Let's see, I don't have now if you get to this point where you don't actually have a category that you want, you can very easily go ahead and add one. Again, Wave apps is really easy to work with, which is what I love about it. Unlike like a QuickBooks, I feel like when you go into QuickBooks, it's so hard to navigate around. If you're not an accountant, it's really not user-friendly at all. Even if you are an accountant, it's not user-friendly. So I really like Wave apps for that reason. I'm just kind of categorizing my last few items here. Again, it doesn't really matter so much about how I'm categorizing these. The point is really to just see what this process looks like. All right, so we've got just a couple more things that I've got like one more. I'm so close. And this is owner's pay. Okay, perfect. So once I get to the end, and if I refresh that filter, you're going to see I have no uncategorized transactions. Yay. First step done, probably the hardest step, okay? The next thing I'm going to go and do is come back to that filter, get rid of the uncategorized filter. And now I'm going to go to status and choose not reviewed. So this is my next filter I'm going to work with. And here what I'm looking at is, so one of the features of Wave that I love is that they actually try, based on your history, they actually try to categorize your transactions for you to the best that they can. And so when I'm coming in here, what I'm looking at is transactions that it's categorized for me, and I need to make sure it's done it correctly. So I'm going to just go through, some of these are older transactions. Again, this is our test account, so it's a little bit funky, but I'm basically just going to go through and say, yep, okay, these all look good. I like what these are. You can also bulk. If you scroll through all of them and you say they all look great, you can bulk mark them as reviewed, which I think is great. But I'm just going to look. Okay, supplies, yes, that's office supplies. Furniture, yep, that's furniture. Kajabi, yep, that's software. Income, yep, that goes to core sales. Okay, great. And again, I'm going to come back to my filter, refresh it. Okay, now everything has been categorized and everything has been reviewed. So I'm good to go. That's the hardest part, or the longest part, I should say, of this whole process. And again, if you've got a lot of transactions every week, it is going to take you a little bit of time, but I'm only at 10 minutes and I've been talking too. If I were just doing this without showing you all, I probably would have been done in about 5 minutes. And if I was doing this every week in this account, it wouldn't even take me that long. All right, so that's the first step. The next step is to go to reconciliation. Now, this is actually not a step you're going to do every week for every account. What reconciliation means is it means making sure that what's inside of Wave apps matches what's on your bank account or in your bank account or on your credit card. And this is actually something you're only going to do once a month when your statement comes out. But I like to check in on this every week because particularly with my credit cards, the statement dates, when the statements actually end for my credit cards, aren't always the end of the month. They're oftentimes a date in the middle of the month, right? So I want to make sure that as soon as that statement comes out, I can reconcile that account, i.e. I can make sure that what's actually on the credit card matches what's in Wave Apps. And so you'll see here, we've got my credit card, we've got a couple bank accounts, we've got some other manually added accounts that we don't really need to worry about too much today. And so what I do, it's really, really simple. I come in here and I click Reconcile New Transactions, and I put the ending date of my statement. Let's say for my credit card that it's the 24th. And I go ahead and I put the ending balance. This is a fake account, so I'm just going to make up the ending balance. But I put the ending balance that's on the statement as of that date, and I press save. Now, if it matches what's inside of Wave Apps, it's going to say, congratulations, you reconcile. If it doesn't, like in the example I just did, it's going to show you the difference. So it's going to say on June 24th, you told us that your balance was $1,000 on your statement. But actually in Wave, we had a balance of $1,938.27, a difference of $938.27. So now I have to come in and figure out, well, why aren't they matching each other? And the way I do that is I have my statement up on one screen, probably over here on my separate screen over here. And then I literally go line by line. So I look at the item on the statement and I check it off. Item on the statement, check it off, and go like that until I figure out what transaction is either missing from Wave or is duplicated in Wave. I figure out what's throwing it off, okay? Now in this case, we're just gonna pretend, that we actually did reconcile. So I'm gonna put in that correct balance, and it's gonna say, congratulations, you've reconciled, let's go reconcile another period. And you'll see here that it now shows that this credit card is reconciled as of June 24th. Now, I won't be able to reconcile it again until July 24th. The July statement comes out, right? But I'm going to check in every week just to make sure I've reconciled every account that can be, that they're all as up to date as possible. I'm at 13 minutes so far. Whoops, 13 minutes right there. Again, that wouldn't have taken me 3 minutes normally, but I'm explaining, so it's taken a little bit longer. And I would go ahead and do the same thing for my bank account. And so we'll do, again, I'm just guessing on these numbers because these are fake accounts, but I'm going to go ahead and press, let's see, 8579. 95, I think is what it said is the end. Perfect, we've reconciled. Now, typically, if you are keeping your bookkeeping system up to date, if you're going in every week or even every month and you're categorizing everything correctly, you will reconcile. So it's very rare that you have to come in and actually do this line by line check, as long as you're keeping everything updated, all right? So everything looks good there. So that's step number 2. The third step is I'm gonna go to my reports, and now we're at just about 14 minutes in. I've still got about 16 minutes to go, and I'll be honest, I don't think I'm gonna need them. But I'm gonna go into my reports here, my profit and loss. It's the first report I'm gonna look at. This is my income statement. This tells me what money's come in and what money's gone out. So when I click on this, there's a few things I can do here. The first thing is the date. I can come here and I can choose a year. I can choose a quarter, any particular quarter over the last couple of years, or I can choose a month, or I can actually go ahead and choose, they've got like last 4 weeks, last 30 days, things like that, or I can choose custom dates. So maybe I want to choose, just the last week, let's just say, just since Sunday, I can choose that. And I click update and it's going to show me those numbers. But in this case, why don't we look at June? And that'll be the first thing. Now, the second thing is the report type, accrual versus cash. Cash basis means that when money comes in, you report it as income, and when money goes out, you report it as expenses, regardless of whether or not the work's been done or anything like that. The accrual basis is the opposite. Accrual means that you report something as income when you've earned the money, and you deduct something as an expense when you've incurred the expense, whether or not you've been paid or whether or not you have paid that person. So an example would be if you are an interior designer and a client pays you in advance for the work that you're going to do. If you're on the cash basis, you're going to recognize all of that as income the minute you get paid. But if you're on the accrual basis, you're only going to recognize that income when you actually do the work. Now, it's important to check which method you're on, because if your business is not new and you've been filing a tax return, you've already elected your method. You need to make sure you keep it the same. You can't just change it year to year. So in this case, most of us are going to be cash basis. So I'm going to change that to cash basis and press update. And that's going to update my numbers. I can click on details, and that's going to show me. So high level income is this. My cost of goods sold and expenses are this. My profit is this for June. But down here, I'm going to see the details. So I had $6,200 in income, and here's how it broke out: $3,700 in consulting, some course sales, and just some other general sales. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the numbers to give me information. So I want to know, where did my money come from? Course sales, consulting, membership, whatever it might be. Were the numbers higher or lower than I expected? How do they compare to the prior month? How do they compare to the prior year? And I'm using this to get data about where our money is coming from so I can make decisions about what to focus on in the business moving forward. Now, I'm also going to come down to the expenses. I'm going to look there. Okay, we had some bank fees, we had some software subscriptions, we had some membership dues, we had some interest. Are there any expense areas that seem really out of whack or that are surprising? Are there any areas where we're spending a lot of money and maybe we need to think about if that money makes sense? So we can kind of use this data again to understand what's going on in the business and make really good decisions about where we're going to spend our money moving forward. Okay, so that's what I do on my profit and loss statement. Now, the other report I look at, we're at 17 minutes, so we're still doing okay on time, is I go to my balance sheet. My balance sheet shows me what I have and what I owe. So again, we can choose our time period, but with a balance sheet, it's important to understand that it's showing you a snapshot on a particular date. So we're not looking at a period of time, we're looking at one particular date. So right now, this balance sheet is as of today, the day that we're doing this. But I could also look at it as of the end of June. If we wanted to look at last month, I could look at the end of last year, whatever I want. And same thing, accrual or cash basis, we can change our method of accounting here, and we'll click update our report. Okay, so this is our balance sheet as of June. It said as of June 30th, we had $8,600 in the bank account. We owed a little over $2,000. So our net assets were $6,587.22. And we can dig into the details here. We had $8,500 in our operating expense bank account. We had $75 in the savings account. We had some furniture that we bought. This is an asset of the business. And those are all of our assets, total assets of a little over $11,000. Now, on the liability side, we've got 2 credit cards. We owed $1,900 on one of them, $150 on the other one. So our total liabilities a little over $2,000. And then down here, our equity section. Equity is basically like what you have, your stake in the business, right? And if you think about the numbers, if you think about the concept of a balance sheet has to balance. So your assets on one side, let me make sure I'm in the camera here, assets on one side, your liabilities and equity on the other. They have to be the same numbers. They have to balance, okay? So if our assets were $11,255.93 and we owe $2,068.71 in liabilities, in order for our sides to balance, that means our equity has to be $9,187.22, because the $9,187.22 plus the $2,068.71 of liabilities equals that assets of $11,255.93. So what I'm looking at here on the balance sheet is, number one, does anything surprise me? Are my bank accounts higher or lower than I expected? Are my credit cards higher or lower than expected? Is there anything I need to be aware of that I wasn't expecting? The other thing I'm looking at is, how are things trending? Is my bank account continuing to grow, or is it actually getting pretty low and I need to be concerned about cash flow? Are my liabilities increasing, and can the business manage the obligation of those liabilities? So these are the types of things I'm looking at when I'm looking at my balance sheet. All right, we're at just almost 20 minutes. So we're doing pretty well, but we're also almost done, which is super great. The last report I'm going to look at is my cash flow report. And so all 3 of these reports are right at the top here in Wave because they're the most important ones. Now, our cash flow report shows us how much cash came into the business and how much cash left the business. This is really helpful if you're trying to fill out your cash flow tracker, which is a tool that we use in our community to make sure that you always have enough cash in the account to cover your obligations. Now, same thing, we can choose a period of time for this. So let's just say we're going to look at just June. And here we're going to see now cash flow report is broken into 3 sections. Our first section is our operating activities. Then we have our investing activities, and then our financing activities. And I'll explain each one as we go through. But our operating activities is anything around the operations of the business, sales coming in and expenses going out. So you can see here we have our sales cash coming in, and we had some cash go out. We had some payments to our credit card. We also had some bank fees. Notice that all of our expenses are not on here because they weren't paid for in cash. They were put on a credit card. So they don't get reported on our cash flow statement. Okay. Now, the next section is investing activities. This would be if we bought a building or we bought some equipment, that would show up here. And then financing activities, if we had a loan and we made a loan payment, that would be on here. Or in this case, because we actually, the owner contributed some money to the business and we actually distributed some owner's pay to the owner, those show up here as well. And then at the very bottom, we've got our overview. So our starting balances of our bank accounts and then our ending balances. And again, what I'm looking at here on the cash flow report is just to see, is there anything unexpected? Do we have a lot more cash go out this month than we expected? Is that concerning? Is that a trend? Is that something we need to be preparing for in future months? Or do we need to identify some kind of a leakage that's going to create some issues for us? On the flip side, do we have a lot more cash come into the business than expected? Or maybe we had less cash come into the business than expected because a lot of our clients are behind on their invoices. That's something we need to be aware of and maybe concerned about and figure out a plan to make sure that people are paying more frequently and on time. So that's the purpose of the cash flow tracker. All right, my friends, I'm at 22 minutes. I'm not going to need the 30 minutes because that is everything I do every single week inside of Wave Apps, which is my bookkeeping software. And just to recap, I take a quick peek at my dashboard to get a high level understanding of where the business is at. I categorize my transactions from my credit cards and my bank accounts. I go ahead and I reconcile my bank accounts and credit cards if the statement has ended recently. And I pull up my 3 important reports, my profit and loss statement, my balance sheet, and my cash flow statement. So all good things there. And it took me, like I said, about 22 minutes. If I were doing this and not talking to you and explaining it all, it probably would have taken me less than 15 minutes. It's what I do every single week to stay on top of the numbers in my business. It's the easiest thing in the world because Wave Apps makes it easy because their system is designed to be user friendly. And I just cannot express how much of a difference it makes in the business when you understand your numbers, when you stay on top of them, because then not only are you prepared when it comes to quarterly estimated taxes and doing your tax returns, but also because you have the data that you need to make better business decisions. You understand what's going on with the money in your business. And so you're not sitting there wondering, can I afford this? What should I do about this? Am I going to run out of cash? How are my sales looking? You've got all of that information and all of those answers right here at your fingertips. So I'm going to stop my timer. It's still going, but I'm going to stop it. So basically 22 minutes to walk through my weekly process. Hopefully that showed you how easy it can be. Like I said at the beginning of this, we're going to go ahead and give away to one person who watches this video. We're going to go ahead and give away either our DIY bookkeeping kit, which comes out in a couple of weeks. It's a paid product, but we're going to give it to you for free, or we're going to give away our Wave Apps account setup. So if you are interested in winning one of those, go ahead and just put a comment in the chat. We're going to give it 24 hours. And then tomorrow at 2:45 p.m. Eastern, we're going to go ahead and pick a winner from anyone who watched the video. And we'll let you know which prize you won. And we're going to be back here for the next 3 Thursdays, same time, 2:15 p.m. Eastern, to do another video in our bookkeeping series. This month is all about how it's easy to do your bookkeeping inside of your business so that it doesn't feel like this big, heavy thing that you just keep ignoring, because that's what a lot of people do. So thank you everyone for being here. I also just want to mention we are going to drop a link down inside the description to grab our DIY bookkeeping checklist. That is something we have available now. It's completely free. It's a checklist that will help you get all of your bookkeeping stuff done. It's exactly what we do for bookkeeping inside of our business. It's what we recommend to all of our clients. And if you're still trying to figure out the bookkeeping thing, or you just want a resource to have a really good process around this, you're going to appreciate our DIY bookkeeping checklist. So again, we'll put a link to that in the description so you can grab that today. And don't forget to comment down below, and we will pick a winner within 24 hours for either our DIY bookkeeping kit or our Wave Apps account setup. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here live. And we'll see you back here next Thursday for another live in our bookkeeping series. Bye for now.